So today we're going to be finding the equation of a line, and this is chapter 4G. We're almost finished with the whole chapter, and your tests will be done not this week but the following week. Okay, so please make sure that you're revising consistently and that you slowly update your reference sheet over time. So let's get to it. So you just got to remember that the straight line comes from the formula y equals mx plus c. Now, there are three different methods to find the equation of a line. That just depends on the context of the question, and I'll be covering each of those, okay? So you'll be using your y-intercept and your gradient to create the equation, and then you'll be able to find the equation given two coordinate points, okay? So let's just recap real quick. This formula, y equals mx plus c, easy to know. M is the gradient, c is the y-intercept, okay? And just remember that it's just a number. The letter c is a number. It just tells you where the y-intercept is. So let's get to it. So how I always go about it is to always just start out by writing the formula. That way, like, you have a reference point, and you know that this is what your final answer should look like at the end of the day. Now, this is for when you are given a graph, and all you have to do is just look at the graph, grab some info, and then get your equation that way. So let's just get to it. So, step one, write it out, done deal. Step two, look at the graph, determine the y-intercept. So, have a look where the y-intercept is. We can see that the y-intercept is where I've marked it with an X, or if you want, I can just dot it with a highlighter. I'll just do it like that, like there. And that y-intercept there is at -4. So that means C equals -4. Great. I got one half of my answer already. So let's try and figure out the other half. So what we need to determine is the gradient now. So to do that, we're just going to use our formula m equals to rise over run. Now, what you're going to do with your line is you are going to make a triangle. What I typically do is I use the x and the y axis to help me create a right angle triangle like that. So as you can see, that's all we need. So next thing I'm going to do is determine the rise. So remember, the rise is the vertical change. So if you look at it from 0, aka the origin, to -4, the change there is 4. And then if you want to find your run, which is the horizontal change, I can look at it from -2 to the origin, that's 2. So we know that, so we know what our rise and run are. Let's just substitute it in, 4 over 2, which equals to 2. But the next thing you have to do is look at the graph again and determine what type of gradient is it. So there's four options. There's positive, negative, 0, and undefined. So you got to pick. So looking at my graph here, I can see that it is a negative type of gradient because as the graph is going from left to right, I can see that my y values are going down. So that's why it's a negative gradient, okay? So I'll just draw that again. That just means negative. So m doesn't just equal to 2, it means m equals to -2, okay? And the final step, put it back into the equation. So I know what m is, I know what c is. Let's just put it back together. So it should be y equals to -2x minus 4. And that's done. Okay. So this is something that you can do yourself. I'll just pause the video really briefly, try and figure it out, and then I'll have the solutions up there, okay? Alright, so this is a solution to the activity here. So as you can see, I'm just applying the same steps as always. Obviously, I didn't write step one, step two, step three, step four. You don't need to write that out every single time. As long as you follow that flow, it will all make sense. Okay. Right. So this is the second method here. So we are now determining the equation of a straight line, but we are not given a graph. We are actually given the gradient and we are given a coordinate point. Okay, so when it says a point, that technically just means coordinate point. Okay, so let's just read the question carefully. Find the equation of the line which has a gradient m of one third. So gradient m of one third and passes through the point 9 and 2. So step one, I always just write out my formula y equals mx plus c. So y equals mx plus c, just write it up there. Now step two is substitute m into your formula. So we're already given the gradient. So the gradient is actually 1 over 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute that 1 over 3 wherever m is and then continue writing my formula. Now step three mentions substitute the coordinate points. So basically, we're given the coordinate point 9 and 2. So if you remember, a coordinate point is written as x and then y. So just go based off your formula. You see y, you see x. So what you're going to do is substitute 9 and 2 where you see x and y. X and y respectively. So what that will look like is actually 2 equals to 1 over 3. So I'll put it in brackets. So every time I substitute, I always put stuff in brackets just to indicate that that's what I'm substituting. And then I'll have 1/3 bracket 9 plus c. So this is your third step right here. Now, step 4 here says to solve for c. Obviously, I didn't give much room, but what I'll do is I'll just rewrite what I last wrote from the previous slide. And now we are solving for C, okay? Now, let's just try to clean this equation up. This now becomes 2 equals to 3 plus C. Now, if you're wondering how I got this from, this is actually, if I do 1/3 times 9, another way of writing times 9 is 1 over 3 times 9 over 1. And obviously, when you multiply fractions, you typically multiply across. So what ends up happening is you get 9 over 3, and then 9 over 3 just ends up being 3. Okay? So that's how I got it from. So actually, I'll see if I can make some room. Let me see if I can fix this up. Boom, boom, boom. And let me put it back. Let's see if that changes. There we go. So if that's the case, I now have 2 equals 3 plus c. And if I'm solving for c, I'm going to apply the inverse operation. So get I'm going to remove the 3 over. So I'm going to apply minus 3 because that's a secret positive sign. So if I apply minus 3 to both sides, just like this, I actually end up with -1 equals to c, which technically means the same thing as this. Okay. So now I know what my c value is and I know what my m value is because that's given in the question. I can actually just put it back all together in the formula. So it now becomes y equals 1/3 x minus 1. And that's it. I'll give you some time again. Just try and work it out. Just follow what I've done on the slides. And then I'll have my solutions up whenever I'm ready. Okay, so this is my solution for the activity here. Hopefully you got the same as me. Um, and then if you have any questions about this, please let me know in class so I can help you out. Okay. Now, finally, you are now going to find the equation of a straight line, but you are given two coordinate points. So no graph and no gradient is given. So it's your job to find both the gradient and the y-intercept together. But all you're given is the points. Now, this method here is very similar to the previous method I just taught you, method two. So when you're given a gradient and a coordinate point, and it will make a lot of sense as I work through it, okay? Now, if you remember what I taught you previously, there was this formula that I taught you all. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Typically, what it just means is the first coordinate point and the second coordinate point. So if I write 1 and 5 as the first coordinate point like this, x1, y1, and 3 and 9 to be x2, y2, it starts to make sense, yeah? So 1 and 5 is the first coordinate point, 3 and 9 is the second coordinate point. That's all. All right, let's try and find out what the gradient is, okay? Let's just, actually, we'll just follow the same flow. So let's just start out by writing out the formula y equals mx plus c. That's what we want. Now, if we try to find what m is y2 minus y1. So 9 minus 5, and then 3 minus 1 as x2 minus x1. Now, what I end up getting is 4 over 2, which means it's positive 2. So now we know that m equals to positive 2. Great. Let's now substitute our m into formula. So this now becomes y equals 2x plus c. Now, you're trying to wonder, how does this relate to the second method that I just explained earlier? Well, you see here how previously what we did was what do we do? Let's see, step three, we substituted the coordinate points. However, we're actually given two coordinate points to substitute in, and you might be asking, which one do I choose? Well, the answer is it doesn't really matter which one you choose. Just pick one of them, okay? So I'll just put a note here. Substitute one of the two coordinate points. So you can choose to substitute in 1, 5, or you can choose to substitute 3 and 9. It doesn't matter. But best one, okay, but best one to substitute is to pick the easier one. So pick the easier coordinate point to substitute. I'll just write generally pick the easier. Oh, that's not how you spell easier. Now, since I've just told you to pick the easier one, I am now going to substitute 1 and 5. So I'm now going to substitute in 1 and 5. I still just get rid of notes. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to substitute 1 and 5. And now it ends up looking like 5 equals 2 bracket 1 plus c. Now, this actually just ends up being 5 equals 2 plus c because 2 times 1 is 2. And then you solve for c. Now, you solve for c. So just remember, it just ends up being you apply whatever it is minus 2, and what you end up is 3 equals c. And then you can just put it back in together. So step 4, whatever, just write y equals 2x plus 3. And there we go. That's my equation right here. Okay. Please go through the questions. This is homework. Okay. Um, Make sure you get it done. I'll see you on Monday or Tuesday, whenever the first time I see you it is. Okay. If you have any questions about any of these methods, please let me know so I can help you out. Okay. Take care. Enjoy the weekend.